everybody, and welcome to the October board meeting of the Lake City Development Corporation. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Rod, would you lead us?
Yes. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next item on the agenda is an opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to address the board for a minute or two. Seeing none. We'll go to approval of minutes. So first we have September 17th regular board meeting minutes to approve.
So moved. Second.
Moved and second to approve the minutes of the September 17th regular monthly board meeting. Any corrections, comments, or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next we have the October 8th, 2014 special call board meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second to approve the October 8th, 2014 special call board meeting minutes. Or any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next on our agenda is a public hearing regarding the disposition of the 728 Sherman Avenue property, a divestiture proposed, and resolution number 1501. This is a public auction for the sale or exchange of surplus real property. Tony, can you give us a brief summary of what we're doing?
What I'll do first is I'll throw a PowerPoint up just to remind everybody where the property is.
Okay.
So basically, the 728 Sherman Avenue parcel is located kind of where A Street intersects with Sherman Avenue. Here's kind of an aerial picture. The property is designated with the red box. And here is a street level view of the property. So just to refresh everybody's memory on this piece of property, in August of 2001, Lcdc acquired this property with residential improvements located at the end of A Street at 728 Sherman Avenue. And these, what I'm going to read today, is all captured in the minutes from the last board meeting. Lcdc, in partnership with the City of Coeur d'Alene, intended to demolish the improvements on the property and utilize the property to extend A Street through to the new Coeur d'Alene Public Library. The city has determined that extending A Street through is now unnecessary due to the better than expected traffic-related performance of the library area. Thus, LCDC does not have a use for the property and desires to sell the property and use the sale proceeds within the Lake District. LCDC intends to declare the property as surplus property, and pursuant to Idaho Code, LCDC intends to dispose of the property using reasonable competitive bidding procedures, otherwise, in other words, a public auction, as contained in the municipal competitive bidding process for disposition of surplus property set forth in Idaho Code. LCDC has obtained an appraisal of the property provided by Columbia Valuation Group and recommends that the minimum price for the property to be obtained at a public auction be set at $150,000, which is the appraised value. Prior to scheduling of a public auction, LCDC will conduct a public hearing as a noticed LCDC board meeting in compliance with Idaho Code, which is happening tonight. Following the public hearing, LCDC will schedule and conduct a sealed bid auction to sell or exchange the property to the winning bidder. In the event no bids are received at the public auction, LCDC will proceed to sell or exchange the property as it deems most reasonable and in the best interest of LCDC. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Any questions, brief questions of Tony before we open it to public comment? Dave.
Tony, we've got an existing lease agreement
Correct.
Got a tenant in there. Can you go over the terms of that?
It's a month-to-month lease,
Okay.
and the rent is a little over $1,000 a month right now.
And it's currently residential tenant.
Currently residential, and it is zoned commercially, though.
If somebody wants to obtain maintenance records and that sort of thing that we've spent on this thing over the time we've owned it, contact you for
Yes.
that information? Okay. And they can also get a copy of the appraisal through you?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other item I'll add, Mr. Chairman, is that I have received no public written comments regarding this issue.
Okay. There are no further board questions. I'll open the floor up to public comment. Anybody that would like to place comments on the record about this proposed resolution? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept or adopt Resolution 1501 as presented.
Second. Been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 1501, public auction for the sale or exchange of surplus real property located at 728 Sherman Avenue, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Roll call. I guess we can have discussion. Any discussion, comments from the board?
For somebody that's looking to pursue acquiring this from us, Tony used the words for sale or exchange. Could you go over the exchange part? There's somebody listening out there that might be interested in.
Sure, I will probably maybe lean on our legal counsel to help me with this, but basically if there's a person that has control, ownership of a property that resides within our Lake District that they think we might be interested in acquiring within this, let's say, a transaction, then that could be an opportunity. I'm not sure if there's any boot rules with cash or anything like that we have to be aware of, but their property would have to appraise for at least $150,000 for a like-kind exchange, or if the properties are close, there might be some cash involved. Was that?
Or it could be multiple properties, kind of a deal.
It could be multiple properties within the Lake
Something of
District.
value of equal to or greater than $150,000.
That would be strategic in nature to the board.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, roll call.
Goodlander?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Davis?
Aye.
Caldwell?
Aye.
Hoskins?
Aye.
Patzer?
Aye.
Harmon?
Motion carries.
So we have 2 yeses and 4 ayes.
Yeah, even though we had
Ayes have it.
That will be noted.
That's been a historic dichotomy. All right. Next item is presentations, and the first presentation we have is on the Lcdc Way Road Construction Project and a Lcdc partnership funding request. Mr. Grant and Mr. Dobler, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss a partnership with LCDC in moving this project forward. A little background. So Lcdc Way has been around for a long, long time. We all know that. As the city has annexed that area and that direction, we've grabbed more and more of Lcdc. But the problem is that it's an expensive fix. So you're probably asking yourself, well, why can't the city manage this? Well, it's a pretty tall price tag, $4 to $5 million, which is really more than we can grasp. So we looked at federal aid funding as probably our best source for construction dollars. We were able to get on their program for design. Right now, we don't have any construction dollars slated, but they've allocated about $300,000, $305, I believe, in their current year, fiscal year 15, for design. But it falls a little bit short of what we think we're going to need, a little bit, about $250,000 short. So that's the crux of why we're here, is to see if you're interested in partnering with us. Out of that $300,000, the city would pay our match, which would be about $25,000, roughly would be the city's match of that. And that gets us through the design phase of reconstruction. And I've noted some of the features that we'd be putting in a staff report would include sidewalks and multi-use paths, reconstruction of the pavement, which is probably removal of the old concrete out there, or crack and seat. We also need curbing, if we're having sidewalk or pedestrian facilities, we would need to put in curbing, and then there's some latent drainage issues that need to be fixed. Ultimately, we estimate the construction cost to be on the, like I said, in the magnitude of $4.5 to $5 million. We think it's really could be a hallmark project. That corridor links us to Post Falls. It has some neat potential for planning and design and connectivity to the Mill River area and on to Post Falls. Even our planners are kind of excited about the fact of long-term planning that it's got potential for, biking facilities and, connectivity in that direction. So we want to focus on it, but it's just a little bit outside of our grasp right now. Let me explain another nuance here, and that is so right now we are on the program. The state is waiting for us to step up and initiate the state-local agreement, but we need to make sure we have the funding to go forward. We have not engaged a design engineer yet. That would be the next step. So we don't know exactly what the final fees are going to be. I would suggest that if you want to move this forward or partner with us, that your portion of it could be, a not to exceed type of verbiage, because we don't know. We kind of give you the comfort that you're not writing, an open-ended check, and we'd be responsible for anything over that. I think the city would be completely comfortable with that. But I did want to explain that we don't have the total in hand, so we're coming to you beforehand. But I can tell the state, yes, we have all the funds that we think we might need, and then we would engage in the selection of the consultant and the agreement with the state. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Deanna.
Yeah.
Gordon, as I recall, this will include a lighted intersection at Atlas,
Thank
and that
you.
has to be completely rebuilt. That's one of the big costs involved,
Yes.
is those.
Yeah, and you're right, it's not just a signal, but if you can see it in your mind, I've got grade separation between the east and the westbound that'll have to be raised up to make it level, so it'd be similar to a 95 intersection. So that'll require, a lot more work than just putting the poles up. Yeah, good, thank you.
Fairly complex, and that also is in involvement with the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization
It is, and also Post
and Post Falls.
Falls Highway District, and they're on board as a co-sponsor they're willing to write us a letter that they would be a sponsor, if you caught the nuance there.
Yeah, they're more than happy to say, okay, Coeur d'Alene,
Yeah.
you take over this stretch of road. We don't want it anymore.
In fairness, I have to say, though, that if they were here, they would remind us that they footed the bill to rebuild that whole bridge before we annexed it, so they haven't, completely
I think that was
ignored
about a $3.2 million
was,
project
yes.
that they had going on there. They
Yeah.
did very nicely for us. We appreciate
Yes,
that.
they did.
Okay, thank you, Gordon.
Dave.
Gordon, Dennis, thanks for coming. You've kept your hands kind of out of this position and into this position, so we appreciate that. So I understand kind of the math here. You got to kind of target what you think it's roughly going to cost, and then you come up with 7.34% of that, of which you've acquired a federal fund of $305,000.
Correct.
Now the $250,000 you say kind of gets you in the ballpark, so you comply with that aspect. That's kind of phase one. And phase two is after you put it out to bid to design the thing, you have to provide or prove to the feds that you've got the wherewithal to come up with the funding, the 7.34 for the total project cost.
Correct.
What's the plan for that? City going to be able to handle that themselves? You
Yeah,
can be
good
back here in
question.
a year for more money.
We would be able to handle the 7.34%.
Okay.
If the feds can come up with the other, whatever it would be, $5 million, $4.5 million.
It'd be
Even-
92 point whatever percent, yeah.
Even that's a little bit questionable.
Okay.
I could foresee a scenario, I don't know the probability, where we might come back and say, would you want to partner with us on the construction if the feds, as they did in design, could come up with X dollars. And by then, we would be a little further down the road with accruing some impact fees, and we might be able to, participate to a larger extent than we are now.
Okay, the housing boom that's going on
Yeah.
out that road, I assume that studying the impact of that, the trips per day, all of that is part of your design workup, and so we don't build something for $5 million.
Correct.
Find out we got bumper to bumper out there.
Yeah. No,
afternoons
you're absolutely
and
right.
mornings,
Yeah.
so that's part of the deal. And as you annex and pursue opportunities as properties develop out there, the IFI, the Old Diamond properties, I guess, as part of their annexation, typically the city will say, well, we want you to help with road improvements, okay? If the road improvements are planned at that juncture, will you be able to make the ask of something else, or will you be able to ask them to contribute part of their funding? You'd mentioned impact fees. Is that where you think some of the funding may come from as,
Yes.
as people in the annexation process?
That's a good question. I'm thinking of one of the annexations we did where we tagged road improvements and even an Atlas signal. If that happens, who knows? But if the project moved forward and it's in the project, then yeah, it's a great question, because we have the ability to go back and get basically cash in lieu of, and say, you just pay us the cash for what you would have owed us.
You can
And
apply
we'll
it for
negotiate with
whatever.
that dollars, and then we just throw that into the kitty.
Okay. Does your $5 million WAG at this point including resurfacing the hole?
Yes.
So we get rid of the dump, the dump.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks.
Surfacing, regrading, drainage, yeah.
Okay.
Gordon, just a question, and maybe not totally fair, but once you do the design process, what are the odds of getting the federal funding in 3 years or whenever? I mean, is it
Yeah.
relatively good? Is it 50-50? What are your thoughts on that?
So that's a great question, actually. A lot better than if we had no design at all.
Okay.
So what we've experienced over the years, and Deanna, you would know this, is really down south, for whatever reason, they're able to do this easier than we are. So they have these projects lined up that have been designed, and they're always right at the head of the line. Because we can't respond, we still have to go through the design. Fortunately, this has no right-of-way acquisition, so the money goes to them. So it's our feeling, and you've had some of the discussions with Glenn Miles from KMPO, that we get through to design, we'd be in a good position. The only question then is, when, if any, would the funds be available and how much? Well, no one can answer that, but
Sure.
I would think we're all convinced we would be in a much better position to grab those dollars. Great, yeah, great question.
Vic?
Are there state funds available? I hear you talking about federal funds and local funds. What about state funds?
No, not for this kind of construction. There are small amounts of state funds available, but they're not for road construction. The state takes all that.
Okay.
For safety improvements, not even for the signal. It has to be an existing facility that's modified. So,
Not new construction.
no, not
Okay. Second question is we're going to extend this to Hutter,
correct.
and then you've got a gap of Hutter then onto Post Falls. Is there going to be a gap in between where there's going to be good road on both sides and not much in between?
Great question. They have already improved their side to Hutter. Early 2000s, something like that.
So the bottleneck's on this side of,
Correct.
east side of Hutter.
Yeah.
They being one of the highway districts?
Post Falls Highway District. They did a crack and seat program, it seemed to me, maybe 2002, somewhere in there, they improved it. I'll say up to Hutter, because I don't know where that far end is, if it's 41, but that is, it's done. So we're basically taking it from where they left off and bringing it into where our project ends at the bridge.
But Hutter wouldn't have a highway department, so that's going to
Right.
fall under the
That's why I was
Post
wondering if
Falls
there was
Highway.
going to be a gap there. Last question is, if the city has the ability to fund the construction portion of it, which is a lot bigger number than the design portion, why don't you have the funds to do the design portion and you have to come to...
Another great question. We don't have the funds to fund the construction. What I was trying to say was, we may, 5 years from now, given that length of time to accrue more impact fees, we don't have the impact fees for this now.
So we're really looking at designing something for 5 years out for construction.
Correct. Yeah, good clarification.
And we are relying somewhat on the fact that the Federal Highway Trust Fund will be sufficient, and you'll get the funds through the State Department of
Yep,
Transportation
that's right,
at that
Denny.
point. So there's a little risk of
correct.
putting
Risk
this
of doing all the
design.
design, and it may be
Correct.
10 years.
Could be, yeah. I mean, nobody foresees that, but it could be.
Deanna.
It's a pretty limited risk. This is how we were able to acquire the funds to do Government Way, was through this same process. This is where the funds have come from for the next extension, which Gordon's probably in the process of right now.
We are.
So KMPO, which is the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization, made up of all the highway districts in the cities within the jurisdiction, all voted to put this as one of their priority projects. So that's how we were able to say, okay, and this happened when I was still on KMPO, so I can report to you about that. This has been a year ago. But they all voted, all the highway districts supported, and the other cities supported this project, since it is the very last piece of the old highway, and that also gives us a higher priority because it is the last piece of the old highway, and so the federal people have a better look at it, they're more comfortable with trying to get the rest of that old road fixed and gone and so on. It's got a great road bed, which means we don't have to do a whole lot of construction of road bed. Biggest cost is going to be the Atlas intersection and that area, but we have a very good chance of getting these funds. It's a very, very good chance. So.
Good. Okay, any other questions of Gordon or Dennis?
Just a question of Tony. Tony, this is in our budget for next year, isn't it? Some money for that quarter?
Correct.
or
The board foresaw this request coming and budgeted $250,000 in the River District budget for fiscal.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, quick point of clarification. Our expenditures would probably happen over 2 years. It would take us that long to get the consultant hired and finish the design process, more than likely, certainly into fiscal year 16, the first part. Just an FYI.
Well, just one last question. Where does it'll start just on the west side of Riverstone entrance, is that correct? Right at the bridge there?
Correct.
And goes to the Hutter border?
Correct.
Okay, so.
Yeah, we have scheduled sidewalk in this project, not road reconstruction, that's already been done, but the completion of the sidewalk out to northwest. So technically, the project limits are to northwest, but in that stretch between the bridge and northwest, it's really only sidewalk and multi-use path on the south side.
Okay. Does this fit within our boundaries?
Yes.
It does. So
Yes.
we can fund something even though it goes beyond the boundaries of the River District?
No, the portion of Celtice, if I understand your question, the portion of Celtice that they're talking about from Hutter Road to the Riverstone Bridge is within our river district.
That whole portion is?
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking it might go on, if it went all the way to Hutter, it might be beyond our district, but it's.
No, it goes right to Hutter
Edge.
Road.
Okay.
So Tony and Danielle, would we want to condition our expenditure of our funds to that part of the project that lies wholly within the River District?
Right, cleaner.
And that the city can handle this little section from the bridge to northwest on your own with your
We can.
funds? Okay. Deanna?
I make a motion that we support the Celtice Way reconstruction project, Lcdc partnership funding request up to an amount of $250,000.
To be expended within the boundaries of the River District.
Exactly.
Motion to approve the request. Moved and seconded. Not to exceed $250,000. Any comment or discussion? I'm wondering if, I guess we can approve it all in this motion. If we don't happen to expend it all in fiscal year 15, it's going to spill over to 16. We don't need to split it up into 2 fiscal years as a part of the motion, do we? Okay. Other discussion or questions? Not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gentlemen, appreciate your time. That'll be a good project. I think it will spur some more development out there. So. Okay, next presentation, North Idaho Family Group, Pre-K through Career Education Information Center. Candace Godwin?
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Let's see if I can.
Might add that this is a presentation coming partly from Councilwoman Miller.
Okay, well, that's a little
Hopefully all these slides won't be getting cut off, but we'll go from there. You can see them. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for having me here today. I'm Candace Godwin. I am the owner of Godwin Marketing Communications, and I'm also a board member of the North Idaho Family Group. And today I'd like to explain and present the Education Information Center, which is a website portal of educational resources for pre-kindergarten through career. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our project, what it means to the community, and invite Lcdc to become a visionary partner of this program. Now, I've sent out some information. You all have some information in your packet, but briefly I wanted to just let you know about the North Idaho Family Group. This organization has been serving the community, nonprofits, and families for about 16 years now. We promote healthy families and lifelong learning, and we have recently become a nonprofit ourselves. And in as such, we are a communications and marketing coalition. We work to bring resources together, working with other nonprofits in the community to bring those resources together. So, how did this come to be? Well, the Education Information Center was a concept that was developed from a community need. In fact, it's also was identified in the Coeur d'Alene Vision 2030 project.
Can I get you to move back towards the podium?
Oh, sorry.
This is a mic that'll pick you up.
Okay, sorry about that. And as this came about, we heard from parents who were having difficulties navigating through the college application program. If any of you have ever or recently have gone through the system of trying to get your child enrolled into college, you know that it can be a very difficult and convoluted process. If you don't know anything about that and imagining trying to get into that system without any background of higher education, it can be very difficult. We also heard, though, from younger parents who were trying to navigate and find out about the best preschools for their children. Where are the Montessori schools? Where should I be sending my child as I'm looking to start this educational process? And it came to our attention that there's no single comprehensive source of information pertaining to all educational resources in our area. It just doesn't exist. So we started thinking, how can we bring these resources together so that from pre-K through career, there's one place where there's access for everyone to learn about the educational opportunities in our community. Now, certainly this information is out there. I mean, Mr. Google will bring back pages and pages of information if you do a Google search that way. The universities and the colleges send out direct mail pieces and course catalogs. The guidance counselors, bless their hearts, they do the best that they can to get the information to the kids. Do the kids get it back to the parents? Not always, but they're doing their best. And then, of course, there's the friends and word of mouth, which is a lot of how this information gets put out there. Parents who have gone through the system of getting their child into college will actually come back and share that information about how to navigate through that process. So the information is there, but as I said, there's no single point of access for all of the information. So that was kind of our aha moment at North Idaho Family Group. It's how can we bring all of this information together? And we actually came up with the Education Information Center. And it is will be a user-friendly website portal of collective educational resources for our region. 24/7 access that will have all educational resources that are within the lake and river districts. Now, before I go any further, I want to clarify just a couple things. One is the name. It is the Education Information Center. And whenever you hear center, folks immediately think bricks and mortar. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. We're talking about a website portal. We're not talking about a bricks and mortar project. At some point down the road, it has the potential that this could actually grow into a kiosk and that kiosk could be housed in some place such as a public library or somewhere in the education corridor or some other public building. But that is a phase 2, and that would certainly be something that would be decided by our visionary partners. That's not what we're talking about today. The other thing I want to kind of clarify is that we've also heard people say, well, isn't this a duplication of services? Isn't this information already out there? Is this like Idaho Goes? It is not. There is no single source of collective resources that go from pre-K through career. Now, certainly the higher education partners will be represented here. You can see that, I'm looking for preschool, daycare, high school, higher education, but this is really more all-encompassing than just that. You'll also notice, and you do have a copy of this draft in your information that was sent out ahead of time, that you see that there's recent news there and the most popular resources, so it's additional information that's there. For example, if someone would be searching for daycares or Montessori schools, they may also learn about the Idaho College Savings Plan, IDEAL. I would venture to say that there probably aren't very many young parents that know that they can actually start a college savings plan through the state of Idaho. And in 15 years from now, when their preschooler is ready to actually go off to college, that they would actually have a college savings plan already started and be ready to help with the funding on that. That's the type of information that will be on this website. And it's also a local program. It will be serving our region. We're not looking to expand this to bring in resources from Western Washington or Southern Idaho. This is going to be serving the people in the Lake and River districts. Again, it's a collective resource of educational opportunities that will be within a 1-hour drive of our community. So from the River District, the Lake District, about an hour out on those. Okay. So the benefits. An educated workforce equals jobs, and jobs make for a vibrant community, and it's about job creation and retention. We've heard that time and time again from everyone from Governor Otter to our chamber leaders and the mayor. It is about jobs and education. You can't have jobs without education, without good resources to education. This will provide a guided path of resources from, as I said, pre-K through career. It will also be a job creation and retention tool. For example, if Steve Griffiths is out recruiting a business to come to our area, and those upper management folks, we don't know what their educational needs are. Perhaps they have children and they're looking for a Montessori school, or perhaps their spouse is wanting to complete their MBA, or perhaps even go to law school. This particular information portal will serve their needs. It's a one-stop place where they can learn about all of that information. In addition, it's a recruitment tool, a retention tool with the continuing education opportunities and career counseling. Where do you go when you have to restart your career? If you're laid off and you need to sort of find out, oh my gosh, what do I do next? What are my opportunities? This site will provide that for them. It's also a collaboration tool among the educational organizations. By having this website portal, those entities can reduce their marketing budgets for marketing their websites and that type of information, and it allows for a sharing of resources, and they can put those dollars into programs and courses, which is would be nice for some of our continuing education. So that's what the Education Information Center is. It's a portal of collective educational resources. Now I have to ask you guys something that may sound just a little bit familiar, because part of LCDC's mission is to bring together resources for a diverse and sustainable and economically prosperous community. And that's what the Education Information Center website portal is doing. We are bringing together those resources. We're bringing together those educational resources so that people can learn about their opportunities, and that plays into that prosperous community. We share very much like missions in that. Also in your packet, you do have a pretty long list of community supporters and their endorsements. I'm not going to go through those right now, but you can see here are just a couple of the folks that have stepped up and supported and endorsed this program. Our mayor, Steve Griffiths, Mark Browning, and so on. You can see those there. Suffice it to say that the concept has been very well received. And we are currently seeking visionary partners to join us in this program. And that's why I'm here today. I'm here to ask for LCDC support to become a visionary partner of the program. We know that LCDC selects programs to fund based on their ability to create a public benefit. And I really do believe, we do at North Idaho Family Group, believe that this program meets that criteria of creating public benefit. We currently have 2 visionary partners, Knutson Chevrolet and Idaho Waste Management. Both of these organizations have been on board from the very beginning and are very excited to be a part of this. In addition, we have 3 other organizations that are poised to join us. In fact, we may already have one. I know there's a meeting happening while I'm actually doing this, so we actually might have 3 visionary partners here very quickly. And all of these visionary partners are sponsoring at the same level. And that level is $7,500 per year with a 2-year commitment. So it's $15,000 for the 2-year commitment. That's the sponsorship that everyone pays for to become a visionary partner. However, what's different is the benefit that the organization receives. A company such as Knutson Chevrolet may want to use their sponsorship as a marketing or advertising piece, and they would want to have their logo on the website or advertising, where another company, or perhaps LCDC, would choose not to do that. We are happy to work with you to develop the sponsorship type of program that you desire for your funding support of this program. And so what does the funding support? Where we are right now is the fulfillment of the website design, the implementation, and a 2-year web maintenance agreement. I mean, we have to, to have this website portal, we have to build it. We have to design it, we have to get it out there, and we have to maintain it. So funding will support that. Also, our legal and office expenses, grant writing. We hope to get other funding through grants, and so we need funding to be able to support someone to help us with the writing of the grants. And also a comprehensive marketing campaign. We're not planning on launching this and just letting it sit there. This website, because it's from pre-K through career, that's a diverse population of people that we need to hit. And from a marketing standpoint, there are different segments of the population, there are different target audiences, and we need to develop a comprehensive yet integrated marketing campaign and to really get out there and market to all the folks that this is going to touch. So your funding will definitely help us with that effort. So where are we today with this? 90% of the data for the website has already been collected. We've been working on this project since February. So we are coming up to the end of the data collection period. The website is currently in design development. There will be some design, there'll be some testing, there'll be some more design, there'll be some more testing. And we have started the marketing plan. Our strategic marketing plan is underway. And we also have set the launch date for January 31st, 2015. That's about 14 weeks away. We've got a lot of work to do in a little bit of time. And so we hope that we can count on the support of LCDC, and that you will join us in becoming our next visionary partner. And with that, I say thank you. And I'll come over and see if you have any questions for me.
Yeah, Candace, if you'd join us at the table, that would be good. I have a couple to kick us off here. So is it the North Idaho Family Group?
Yes.
Are they, are you a 501c3?
Yes, we just are in, okay, we either are just received that or we are. I apologize, I'm,
Have received or you're getting your exemption letter from the
yes,
IRS?
yes.
Okay. So what's your total budget for this project?
Our total budget is really going to depend on our visionary partners to help support this.
What do you need to make it work?
Yes,
Do you know what that number is?
I don't.
Okay.
no, but I can certainly get that information for you.
Then, I mean, it seems like certainly a good idea. I'm wondering, are there no other organizations or places in the state that have done this? There's no place
No.
to sort of model after?
Actually, we just learned of something that is sort of similar out of King County in Seattle, but it's still not to the extent of what we're doing. No, there isn't anywhere else doing
Okay.
this.
So in terms of data collection, I assume that's sort of the information you're trying to disperse to the people that need it. So,
Right.
I mean, educational opportunities are sort of an immense universe, and I see that. So that's why you've got this hour.
Yes,
So are you scooping in? University of Idaho? Is that?
absolutely.
But not the other state institutions unless they're here at the center?
Right. But, and of course, Boise State is part of the center, so they would have their opportunity
all
there.
are, actually.
But it's not, it's providing the access point for people to find out the information of what's available in our community for them here. And that here could be a Spokane Community College. I mean, that's within the realm of the distance of where we are.
And not just public institutions, but all educational
Yes,
institutions?
trade schools. I was actually thinking we haven't had a huge discussion on this, but if there are opportunities that are not available here locally that may be further away, a trade school, for example, say a welding school. If there wasn't a welding school within an hour's drive, but it was within 2 hours' drive, would we still list that because we're not competing with something that's local?
And now are you then just linking to their databases, their websites?
Yes, these are data links. It's just so people can come to one particular area, one website. They don't have to remember, do I need to go to the University of Idaho and then, I have to do this other link over, I have to go to another website. It's all in one place, and it's sort of a guided, this is what you need to do with these different places.
Okay, and then one final question.
Yeah.
Have you provided us with the makeup of your board?
I did not, but I can
Good.
I can get that to you, and I can also verbally tell you who is on
that'd
the
be
board.
good.
Myself, Carrie Cook, Bob Over, Bob Driscoll, Janet Burke, and Kiki Miller is our executive partner, and then Shelley Zolman is our director.
Tony?
I just had a clarification question. Did you say private schools would also be in?
Private schools, charter schools, Montessori schools, daycares, trade schools, workforce training, continuing education. I mean, we really are bringing all of it together into one place so that you don't have to remember this, that, or the other. You just have to remember this place.
What about the for-profits? The for-profit universities and...
Like Phoenix,
Yes.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I need to find out about that. But again, we're talking about if they are delivering programs within an hour drive. I know Phoenix used to have something in the Spokane Valley. I don't think they do any longer, but they would be listed. But we're not looking to expand this to Western Washington or to bring in, places that are going to send people. We want them to know what the opportunities are so that it's in our community, and help the folks in our community navigate some of those challenges that they have getting through the system.
Other questions?
Part of your plan says lifelong learning, which this is, but it also says promoting healthy families. How do you do that? What's that mission?
Well, the mission is through the North Idaho Family Group, which this is a part of. So that's why that's listed on there, is promoting the healthy families. Working.
Not part of the Education Information Center project per se. That's
No, not
something
per
else
se,
you do.
yes.
Nick?
So much education now is via the internet. It's web-based education. So there really are no borders. I mean, you could be in Coeur d'Alene and be going to the University of Maryland.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, really what you're looking at is you're looking at bricks and mortar types of institutions here. My only concern is that education is changing so rapidly
Right.
that you might be obsolete before you get started. And if you look at the model of particularly higher education, I think you have a good concept that was good 5 years ago, but is almost obsolete today.
I disagree with you on that, because what we're actually doing is bringing the resources together. So if you are looking for information at a higher education university, and they will be a partner with us, you can find that information and those online courses through that institution that's here, and that perhaps would maybe have you go off to the University of Maryland if the program that you wanted wasn't available here. But it's the starting point that is through. We're not providing the courses. We're sharing the links. We're gathering
I understand
those.
what you're trying to do,
Yes.
but it just seems to me that it's growing so big so fast. I mean, years ago, if you wanted to do a college education, you had to go
Right.
to that location. It's not that way today.
And it isn't. I mean, even with UI Coeur d'Alene here, I mean, the majority, it's rare that they actually have professors that come up from Moscow. I mean, it's all telecom back and forth. But the access to that information isn't going to change. Being able to go to one website and learn about what your options are at the University of Idaho or at NIC or other institutions. And remember, this isn't just about higher education. That's just one piece of it.
Well, I understand that.
So, yeah.
Dave?
Oh, thanks, Candace. I need some clarification. You talk about, on part of your packet you gave us, says, the North Idaho Family Group. That's an entity that you talk about that you've got member vendors and you've got membership to that. Now, this particular endeavor for the Educational Information Center is a subset of the North Idaho Family Group?
Yes, it's a project of that organization.
Okay, and so you're out fundraising for the educational component of the North Idaho Family Group's activity?
Yes,
Okay.
a project of this group.
So North Idaho Family Group's up and functioning. I think I got a copy of your magazine earlier this
Yes.
year. And it talks about marketing and communication services by your member vendors. Okay. Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Other questions?
I have a question
Scott.
for, I guess, Tony. Has the board funded anything like this before? Because really we have a district and we pay for improvements in that district, but this will spill way outside of our district.
Well, one of the conversations we had when I met with Kiki was that the board has funded, like her example was Coeur d'Alene 2030 Visioning, which adds value to the community beyond our districts. It might not be as broad as this, but it definitely goes beyond our district. So it comes down to, can the board see this as an investment in benefiting the community, definitely within our districts, but in the community as a whole? That was kind of one of the examples, because the 2030 visioning does expand, into a broader area.
How much do we contribute to Jobs Plus?
$2,000 per year.
This is the first year we've done that. It was $1,000 a year prior to that.
Nick?
This is my opinion, but it appears that this really seems to be more tied to almost a United Way or some other organization that might be more county-wide or larger than just our district. I kind of agree with what Scott's saying. It appears that our districts are kind of isolated to this certain part of Coeur d'Alene, but this is going to be encompassing a lot larger portion of all of North Idaho, and particularly for the amount of money that we're talking.
Other comments? So the board could take it under advisement, do nothing, it could move to approve, or just whatever the board's pleasure is.
I'd prefer to take it under advisement, and we could make a decision later. I just don't know enough about it yet. And
So-
there's no budget, and there's just a lot of things I don't quite understand.
I can get budget information for you. I apologize, I didn't have that information.
Yeah.
So,
It's our first exposure
Yes,
to
I
what you're
understand,
doing.
yeah.
So, yeah, I kind of share the tentativeness about this myself.
I guess I'm a little like you two. I'm kind of thinking who came up with the idea of this? Is it some of the higher education sources here, or who created this idea, and how, kind of how does this all work? So I think we're all kind of grasping a little bit of this. Where did this start, and whose auspices is it going to operate under? And I guess I'd maybe be for taking it under advisement, and then maybe when we learn a little bit more about it.
And I'd prefer to see a long-term plan too. I mean, right now it looks like 2 years, and then that's the length of your commitment.
no, actually, we're hoping that we will have sustaining partners that join, and they would be those that are getting the direct benefit from the website. So if you are either through advertising on the site, we have the group, as you may or may not be aware of, we do have the North Idaho Family Magazine, and our members participate in this. They pay into the North Idaho Family Group, and so they have editorial and advertising within the magazine. Our sustaining partners for the for the Education Information Center would be similar, where they would be participating by having ads on the website and other benefits from that, either through gathering the information back to them about who's visiting, how many inquiries that perhaps they received, that type of information. So,
Candace, are you soliciting any funding from the educational institutions themselves?
yes, we are hoping to.
And
They have spoke that they are interested in this. At this point in time, though, they have not given us a firm commitment.
That kind of seems like a natural to me,
Yeah.
for them to be major players in this.
If you're funneling students to them, that's of value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they see that. They do understand that. They just haven't signed yet.
Dave?
Candace, I hope you understand, you're requesting taxpayer money, public money here.
I do.
And because of that, we have to get our arms around understanding what the real ask is, and we have to understand the track record of your organization, your parent organization, have to understand how your infrastructure works, your longevity of what you're going to do, and if there's any particular political or philosophical bent that your group has.
Right.
And so we need to kind of get our arms all around that before we can decide yay, nay, and when you say you're within an hour of both of our districts, I mean that's a pretty good size area, so we need to get our arms around that a little bit too. So if you can provide us with kind of a summary recap of how long you've been out there, what you've been doing, maybe some bios on your board members, who appoints those people, how long you've been a 501, well, you haven't been a 501c3 for very long if you haven't got your paperwork yet, so, but I know that can take a couple of years too. So kind of give us a general feel for what kind of business you all have been in.
Yes, I'd be happy to
kind
do
of
that.
track record you've got,
Absolutely.
and we can
That's
feel
not a
more
problem.
comfortable and
And we'll
taking it
maybe
any further.
assign that to a committee or put together a little committee and delve further. So if you can provide us with some additional information, we'll consider it.
Absolutely.
We appreciate your time.
Okay,
It
thank
doesn't
you.
sound like the board has any particular action in mind, so with
All
that,
right.
thank you
Thank you very
much.
much. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time today.
Thank you.
Okay. Reports. Housing Committee, Deanna.
Yes, we had a meeting last week with the neighborhood on the Midtown project, and Tony has put together a PowerPoint presentation, and so Tony, I'll turn it over to you for that PowerPoint, and I'll take it further.
I thought it would be valuable to kind of refresh everybody's memory on kind of how we came to where we are at today in Midtown. Okay. This won't take very long, but I thought it'd be valuable to get everybody on the same page and refresh people's memories. Some people might not have been around when all this happened. So we start off with our Lake District. It was formed in 1997, sunsets in 7 years. And the pink line outlines the Lake District, and the yellow area designates Midtown, which was identified early on as a part of the Lake District that might need special attention. So why is LCDC focusing on a mixed-use workforce housing initiative in Midtown? Well, if you look at LCDC's vision and mission, it is part of our vision to be looking for economic prosperity, quality housing, and employment opportunities. If you look at the mission, we want a strong regional economy, quality jobs, and housing for all. So it is kind of in our core documents. If you recall, back in 2003, we had a strategic plan conducted, the ZGF Lake District Plan. One of the quotes that I still recall today was Dave Leland of that group says, "Get people living and working within your Lake District." And that was another driving goal for the board to pursue activities both in downtown and in Midtown. That plan also calls for serving all segments of the community, from high-end condominiums to affordable apartments. One of our strategic goals is for work. We want to really focus on getting these, investigating these opportunities where they exist, and in Midtown in particular, to partner with a housing company on a mixed-use project for that area. And our tactical goal for 2015 is the housing committee is to partner with the housing company to bring this to fruition. So that kind of shows you kind of where we're at in our documents and our strategic thinking. As we saw here last week, the city came to LCDC and shared with us the city's mission and vision regarding fair housing. They are required to promote fair housing within the city, and since both of our districts reside in the city, we are under that auspice also. Fair housing, as we saw last week, the city did a fine job of sharing with us some of the principles of fair housing about how it can be non-discriminatory, and we have to be very mindful of making sure we understand how those principles are deployed. And the Fair Housing Act, we have to avoid clustering, steering certain projects to certain areas of the town, and to be very cautious about how we look at different projects. So here we are in 2014. We're in Midtown. This is a current development project or footprint. The blue is owned by the housing company. The area in red is owned by the Lcdc. So how did this land assemblage happen? Back in 2002, as you recall, on 4th Street, our first endeavor was to acquire from the county this dilapidated building. I'm not even sure what it was at that time, office and I think residential on the top. We acquired this from the county for $13,000 and we tore it down. Once that area was complete, we were approached by Terry Lee. He wanted to build a 2-story building on that site, first floor gallery, second floor residence. We worked with Terry, but the parcel was small and he couldn't make the project pencil. So the thinking was a bit larger development footprint was needed for a viable mixed-use residential commercial building. So this led to work with the city and the partnership on the Midtown Overlay District. So in 2004, the city and LCDC, with LCDC's participation, came up with the Midtown Overlay District, where housing would be encouraged both above and behind commercial uses, emphasis on creating streetscape that would offer safety, convenience, and visual appeal to pedestrians. So based on that, in 2006, we went back to Midtown and we acquired the old Rosebud Tavern property, $313,000 LCDC investment. We tore that down. Now we have a little bigger footprint in Midtown, which is designated or denoted by the red square. In 2006, we were approached by the Messina Bernardo development team to put a mixed-use building there, 2-story, office retail on the ground level, office residential on the second story. We worked with them for quite a long time, and they could not make the project pencil, primarily due to the size of the footprint being too small. So we thought maybe a larger development footprint was needed for a viable mixed-use residential commercial building in Midtown, thus the genesis of the LCDC, the Housing Company Partnership. 2008, in partnership with the housing company, we acquired the Parish Flea Market. LCDC's contribution was $100,000, the housing company $28,000. At that time, in 2008, the housing company purchased the Idaho Youth Ranch building and the Ponderosa Motors Suzuki commercial building up on 4th Street. The housing company spent $537,000 in this process of migrating the Idaho Youth Ranch to this new location. Quite a bit of tenant improvements were needed to get the Idaho Youth Ranch in there, thus the large number. But that occurred in 2008, securing this corner of the footprint for the housing company. At that same time, LCDC bought these 2 parking lots in the Ponderosa Motors deal, which are currently used for public parking, and we paid $358,000 for those 2 parking lots. So here we are in 2008, LCDC ownership in red, $784,000 investment, $516,000 are associated with the housing company proposed project. The housing company has over $800,000 in this project, which includes transaction costs associated with the acquisitions. Also, as you recall, in 2008, LCDC spent $1.7 million in placemaking, putting new streets, new sidewalks, new streetscaping in Midtown from Coeur d'Alene Avenue up to Harrison. This just is to remind everybody in the viewing audience of the proposed the housing company mixed-use workforce housing project for those lots in Midtown. And finally, just to recap for LCDC, our investment in Midtown to date from 2002 to current is $2.5 million, which includes the cost of our placemaking effort as well as the property assets we acquired. So I just wanted to share that with everybody to get everybody on the same page as to how we got here as Ms. Goodlander starts the conversation for the Housing Committee.
Okay, thank you, Tony, for that.
Tony, I have a question. Could you go back to the map and show that shows the ownership? So of the portion that's there, of the housing company's portion and also LCDC's portion, the project that's proposed would encompass what portion of that? Is it all 100% of it, or?
I'll use a pointer here to delineate the project. The project is going to go from the corner just across the street from Capone's up to about this first row of parking right there. So we would retain the remaining part of this public parking as well as this entire lot. And the Idaho Youth Ranch would be unaffected that reside in that building. So from right here, all of this area.
But that's not quite the same as the footprint, right? There's a little bit of open space within that.
Right. There is currently proposed a pocket park on the corner down here that's not captured, but currently is proposed to be located down on this corner.
Thanks.
Okay, Deanna, back to you.
Back to me. There's a lot of history here, and we spent a long time trying to develop this area and improve it. So we did have a meeting, and I think some of us were at the meeting with the neighborhood and the housing company. The housing company is continuing to work on the project and move forward with it. LCDC, I think we have had a commitment to this area. Obviously, we spent a lot of money to enhance it. In order for the housing company to move forward with a project there, and that project is somewhat fluid as to exactly how it's going to be configured still, but in order to give them the encouragement that they need to move forward with the project and actually start the process of drawings and defining what the project will be, we do need to provide them with our support or non-support. So I think just to put it just plainly, let's just, if anybody has any questions, I'll make a motion and then we can ask questions. But my motion is that we continue to support the housing company in moving forward with the Midtown project.
The motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded to continue to support the Idaho Housing Company Midtown Housing Project. Discussion.
Do we need to define support?
Tony, why don't you review with us, if you could, how we approached that on the prior application that we supported?
Well, what the housing company has told me for the support they need is that they're going to have to start spending money here very shortly on final design plans, studies regarding the demographics of the area for their application window in February. This is not a done deal. They might not get the federal tax credits in February, but in order to apply in February for the tax credits, they need to start spending money, they said in early November, to make their package, to get their package together. So they said what they need at this point is to know if the LCDC is going to be willing to be a partner in this proposed project for our application window in February.
Deanna.
Just to clarify that, the city has very clearly stated that they are behind moving forward with the project. We cannot expect the housing company to continue to spend money on this project without recognizing that the potential to put a project there is in place. It's very costly, as you all know, to do design and start that process again. They've spent a lot of money and they're going to need to spend some more. Without our support, I don't know. They could just walk away from it. They could try to sell it. It's been for sale. Nobody wants it. The costs are so great that you can't make a pencil project without some sort of an entity such as a housing company to make it work. It won't pencil. We've tried to make it pencil. We've been approached by private developers. They've looked at it, but the amount of money that it's taken to accumulate this property and put it in one piece is substantial, and it's very difficult to make a project pencil, especially since the neighborhood has very clearly said, we don't want a high-rise there. We don't want a 4-story, 5-story building. So that limits what you can do with the property if you want to try to work with the neighborhood and not put a parkside or something of that nature there. That's how you make those things pencil, is if you can get height when you cost so much to accumulate land. In this case, it costs a lot to accumulate the land. In order to get it to work, it's got to have some sort of extra entity to help make it work. So it's kind of an either-or situation right now. Obviously, the housing company is willing to work with the neighborhood and has tried to work with the neighborhood. Their design is still not complete. They are going to move forward with it, but only if we say, so it's either put up or shut up. It's kind of, I'm sorry to put it very bluntly, but that's how I feel. I feel that it's time for us. It's an opportunity for us, opportunity for the housing company. We need to move forward.
Rod.
So I can understand a little bit better, if we say we support the housing company, which is going to involve dollars eventually, and they design something that works for them, we support it, but for whatever reason the neighborhood does not, is a housing company going to move forward?
I believe at some point in time, in my opinion,
Sure.
I can't speak for the housing company, but at some point in time, you have to make a decision and move. You can't just sit and wait and wait and wait. The conversation's been going on for a long time. At some point in time, you've got to say, we're going to either make this happen, or I frankly don't know what the next step would be if they choose to walk away. I do know that we've gotten support from the mayor to move forward with the project. His statement has been that he does support the project. He sees it as a viable project for Midtown. They can't move forward without the city support. They have to have that as part of their application process. to the federal government for the tax credit housing. But I think we've reached a point where we've got to either move forward or I don't know what the alternative is, but if we don't move forward, why the alternative will probably be something different, something, whatever. I can't state what the alternative, because we have a big chunk of money. They have a big chunk of money. Somebody's got to recoup their money.
So how much money would we, if we make a support statement here, it's obviously, like Rod says, it's more than just giving our voice to it. How much further capital is going to be requested of LCDC to go forward with this project?
I think we'll turn that to Tony.
I can address that. I think all the housing company is looking for tonight is a commitment from the board to continue to be a partner in the process. They haven't fine-tuned their design and cost estimates yet. That will come back to the board. I mean, if the design goes real far to left field and the board's not happy with it, then you can withdraw your support. Or if the cost comes in, they need another $500,000 from the board, you can withdraw your support. But right now, they just need a commitment from the board saying, yes, go ahead, spend money. We're still interested in partnering with you on this project in Midtown. Let's see how it goes. Let's work with the neighbors. Let's look on this commercial space. Let's work with this pocket park to see how it goes. But they're a little nervous right now of going forward and spending the dollars they need to spend without some level of commitment that, yes, the board likes this concept. We want to see it develop, and hopefully it would be something that when the application goes in at the end of January, everybody signs off on.
So I'm new at this project, so you guys have been through this application a couple times already, it sounds like, so I'm probably going to ask questions here that have been answered many times before. So we partner with the housing company, and this project gets constructed and it becomes occupied, and there's revenues coming off of this. Are we part of the ownership group of this, or do we assign our ownership interest in the property to the housing company? And then what do we get back in return from that?
The way it would be structured, at least the way it has been structured, is that LCDC would partner with Idaho Housing and Finance Association, which the housing company is a subsidiary of, to transfer our land assets to the project. So that would be our equity, our land equity into the deal. And we would not recoup anything from that. That would be a gift to Idaho Housing in order to make this project pencil.
So we're basically taking the $750,000 we've committed to this and making a donation to the Midtown group, basically.
It's basically, I put in, it's $516,000, about $520,000 in land equity that we would chip in. But the housing company would also ask us probably for some additional funds with a commercial space and stuff. So the ask would probably be a little bit bigger. And they're still fine-tuning that now. But they don't want to go too far down the road and doing all this work unless the board says, yeah, okay, we're still interested in being a partner.
So who recoups the profit if there's a profit on this project?
Well, the housing company is a nonprofit, but
I understand that. But
it would be the housing company.
So the housing company, even though they're a nonprofit, it will be recouping their portion of this from any profits that are made.
I guess theoretically, it'd probably go into their pool and then go into other projects.
Well, they have a lot of debt to service.
Right.
On this project.
I understand that, but I mean, you always hope in any kind of development that you cash flow well enough to have excess capital.
I think they're looking at 15 years down the road, or whenever they're out of this at some point, then the money would go back in the pool, just like they've got money right now they're working with to put this in. So they'd make money on it, but it stays in to go to other nonprofit projects. So.
I think, to be fair, Douglas Peterson the other night at our meeting indicated he didn't see this as a profit proposition for them. They do have built into their current, or will apparently, into their current application, the possibility of converting these to condominiums after 15 years, but the costs of paying the interest all that time, and I think, frankly, they're going to have some conversion costs in terms of structural things to do this. I don't see any likelihood that they're going to make a profit on this to spend elsewhere. And the other thing is that it will be subject to taxation. It will be on the tax rolls.
Increment off of it.
There will be increment coming off of this.
So the other side of the, sorry, Scott, the other side is if we chose to walk away from this, we could take the property that we acquired and put it up for sale if we chose to. I mean, that would be an option if this whole thing did not go through.
Just like we voted to do with the 723 Sherman today.
Okay, thank you.
Scott?
But to go on that a little further, the reason we chose to dispose of that property today because it was no longer of strategic value and the Midtown property is a strategic value and part of our mission statement and value, so vision. But the two questions I had is, one is, what have we voted on and approved as a board for support already?
Nothing, really. I mean,
Well, you
nothing.
just talked about giving them $520,000.
Well, that's all in conversation. I mean, the board hasn't officially done anything on that front. But other than yes, we are an interested partner. This is the land we've bought. The board is considering willing to consider. Do you have?
I was just going to say, when they get to the tax credit application process in February, where they have a design that you guys have seen and reviewed, they're probably going to ask you for a letter that looks a lot like what we've provided to Whitewater, where you say, we're in for your, your public participation component from at the local level, because that helps them get points on their tax credit application. So that'd probably be where you'd have to make some decision to commit before they submit that application.
But there's been no board vote yet for that, anything there. So
No.
that would be one thing that Deanne is asking for tonight.
Well, not necessarily. I don't think you need, in my opinion, you don't need to pull that trigger tonight. I think that they just need to continue their planning to know that you're a committed partner. Because they might come back with a product or a recipe that the board's not comfortable with. I mean, when it finally comes down to signing on the bottom line, that it's going to be too much money that the board wants to put in.
I realize tonight there's no dollar ask, and the second question I had was, the Midtown Group had stated a couple times that they have financial partners that they're wanting to bring forward into this, and they were supposed to get those names to you?
I have not heard.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're both intertwined in this together, so.
We have to be for this project because they can't do it without our dirt.
Right. I mean, I guess if this hits the end of the road at some point, then yeah, I guess they'd maybe sell their land and we sell our land and dispose of it, but I think something will come out of this. We're both intertwined together in this thing, so I fully support Deanna's motion to move forward. I think we have a commitment to work with the neighborhood, but this is still in flux in design.
Totally agree with Brad, and I think some comfort maybe from the neighborhood is this project was going forward once before, and I think it was getting close to it, and it got derailed, and so there's still, just because we're approving something verbally tonight for not even any dollar amount, there's still hope, I think, for the neighborhood that there's going to be work, they're going to get to work with the housing company and stuff on design and looks. And
I think that offer, from my understanding, what happened last week, is that offer is still there. It's always been there as they continue to refine this model, this concept, to see how best they can make it work.
Yeah, I agree with Deanna's motion to not do anything. All of us will end up selling the land. Somebody will buy it and
At a
develop
loss.
it however they want within the regulations and the zoning.
of the zoning.
And it may not be anything close to what any of us want. So I think we do need to keep moving down that path.
Dave?
Question for Danielle. Danielle, on the application part of it, or maybe you all know this in talking with Douglas, what is his timeline in submitting the application? In other words, when are they going to have their their idea on paper to submit? And say this?
February.
Okay.
I think they'll have it sooner than that.
I thought it was like December or
But
something.
I think they'll have a very strong draft by December and fine tune to January before they
The
actually
application
have to
is
submit it.
in February.
It's due in February, yeah.
Okay.
Is
And
it funded next year then? Will you funded for 15?
Right. If they get, my understanding, if they get the tax credits in February, they have to spend them within 18 months.
Well, they won't know in February, though. I think they'll probably know
March.
more like April-ish, and then then they have to put their financing package together, which will involve, exactly what the costs are and who's going to get an investor and a construction lender, and there's quite a process to put it together. So I would say it'd probably start construction in 16.
Yeah, I believe that's what Douglas suggested, was they would turn dirt in 2016 if they got the award, and everything came together.
Well, and the tax credits don't pay totally for the project. They just make it a viable project because of the cost of construction. And they will be getting a loan on the property, and they will have to, I believe the number that was kind of bandied around was around a $9 million project, which is a substantial project for that.
that include our equity in it, or just totally out their part of it?
Pardon?
Did that include our, or the public's equity in this thing?
I can't remember that he defined which was which, but he did say that it was a $9 million project.
And how much are the tax credits for?
I'm not familiar enough with tax credit financing. I just know the tax credits can help make a project
They will
like this
sell those for-
viable, as they
for-
did with Whitewater. And,
Right.
you know, we did, several projects with Whitewater, the elder housing one, and a couple others in Riverstone. It's the same type of
Yeah,
tax
Raymond
credit
James has a lot of those.
process.
The tax credits can only be used on the residential portion, though, so any of that, all the construction costs for the commercial is coming out of their budget.
And that commercial is, in our opinion, very valuable to the health of Midtown. And
Agreed.
of course, obviously, that's been our goal, is to make Midtown a healthy community.
Deanna, the pocket park component of this was kind of a late arriver in this process, the discussion. How embedded is that in the overall, I guess, qualification of the project? I don't know if that adds points to their application, if it was something that was derived from the conversation with the neighbors, if it helps in marketing, you know, the commercial aspect of this. How much of a component is that?
Well, as
green
I
space?
understand it, the pocket park was a kind of a concession to the neighbors. They wanted some green space there, and so the housing company has really, I think, worked very hard, aside from making a non-viable project. And, you know, the project has to be viable, and so you can't do something that maybe is totally going to satisfy everybody because it isn't viable. It doesn't work. But the pocket park was purely a potential concession to kind of work with the neighborhood on it. It's not set in stone by any means. It could move to a different part of the property. It could have, there could be just several entities. It was just part of the initial discussion. Okay, how can we make this as acceptable to the neighbors as we can, still retain a viable project that works for us as well as for the community? And so that's where that came from. So nothing is really set in stone in that project right
The
now.
location of the pocket park, was that driven by kind of a consensus of the neighborhood group that it had to be across the street from Capone's in that Roosevelt and Fourth?
Well, mostly
area?
the neighborhood wanted to turn the whole thing into a pocket park, or into a park. and so, well, that's not going to work. So they just said, well, maybe we could put a pocket park here. So I think that is very fluid. And I think we'll work with the housing committee, will work with the housing company on it. They will continue to try to work with the neighborhood as best they can. But in the end, what it's going to come down to is this viable? Does this work or does it not work?
So if they came back and there was very little commercial, and it was, I mean, obviously, to make this work and to have the least amount of cost in it for them, it's going to be more residential, less commercial. Do we then, at that point in time, have a yay, nay? I mean, obviously, tonight we're making no commitment other than a verbal commitment, so there's nothing to hold us to. But
I think
the consensus of this board, I believe, is to have a first floor commercial, so that
And
we
I think
can
that's our
have
goal, too.
vibrance.
And I think that's the direction we're wanting to go, is to make sure that we've got commercial on that lower level.
Okay.
And they have to, in my view, we may have to be prepared to put more dollars on the table to make that happen, but I think we do need to protect that concept.
I agree. We're creating community here. And this is a loser for a private developer, but that's why you have an urban renewal agency to take something like this and create community. And that's why we're putting dollars into this project and making the ground floor retail so that it's viable where it would normally be viable to a private developer. Private developer, if they even bought this land to start with, I don't know if they would, but if they did, they'd cram in the highest number of cheap rental units that they could in there to get the density and maximize the rents. And that still may not pencil for someone even doing that. But that's not what the goal is here. That really is not an issue.
And we have a unique relationship with the housing company because they're a nonprofit governmental. That's why we can participate in this way with them. And Tony can give you, or Denny can give you a clarification on that.
Well, we can participate with a private developer on this too, but the housing company is the only entity that stepped up that wanted to be a partner on this type of a project that has a scope and scale and the mixed-use elements that the board was pursuing.
I think a
But
number of years ago.
we'd
oh,
have
I'm
to
sorry.
sell the property to a private group. Under this auspice, with the Idaho Housing and Finance Association, we'll be able to transfer property. But if it was a private developer, we'd have to go through a fair reuse appraisal process and sell the property to a developer.
That's what I meant.
I think this partly started because an Idaho Housing Board member a number of years ago suggested they should do a project in Coeur d'Alene. They've done projects all over the state, and that Coeur d'Alene should have a project, and this was kind of flowed into this as a potential partner when we couldn't find a private partner to make this thing work.
Dave?
As part of the public's contribution to this project, is there any kind of a fair market appraisal that needs to be done to determine the value of our contribution to this project? I mean, I know we've spent X number of dollars. That doesn't mean that's what the contribution value is. Do we, as part of the partnering and divesting ourselves of this public land to make this go under the current format, do we go out and value what our contribution actually is in today's dollars, or is it just what we've spent?
I think the way that they will present it on the application is just what you have, cash you have into the project, because it's the only benefit on the tax credit application is that local participation that Whitewater has sought from the board. You know, you get extra points and more likely to secure the tax credits if you have a local partner. So I think
Regardless of what the partners,
no, I mean, there's a dollar amount that they, you know, there's I think it's a percentage
let's
of
say it's worth
participation.
$700,000, not that it is, but wouldn't that be to their advantage to have a fair market value on that, what our contribution is, rather than just what we've paid for it?
I think it's dollars in, but
Is
I'm
it
not
dollars
sure
in?
that.
Do they adjust it because we've got almost 10 years worth of dollars in on this thing? Do they do anything to value adjust that at all? I mean, this is maybe too much detail for this discussion, but as part of the gamesmanship that when they put this application out, I mean, anything to enhance it to maybe affects the net contribution we're going to be asked for at the other end, I'd like to know that stuff, so we're not
We can ask
paying
them
more
about
than
that
we
to
need
Good question for
enable
them.
them to maximize the
Yeah,
the
okay.
land as a contribution.
Other discussion? I'll just say that, for me, but for the hesitancy on some of the neighborhood group, I'd be all in on this, and I still am. But it makes it harder because we'd like to do something that we think the neighbors are going to embrace. I know that there's a definite element there that doesn't embrace it, and I'm sad about that, but I can't help it. I still think it's a value-adding project for this particular property, and that it will prove itself out. So I'm committed to continuing to talk with them, with you folks that are here tonight. But really, the alternative is unacceptable to us, because it's nothing. It's a bunch of vacant land and some couple of dilapidated buildings left to go forward with if we don't proceed with this program. So that's where I am.
If you're a neighbor sitting there watching this, and feel like you've been an active participant in giving input to this, I got the impression from Douglas last week that, and we mentioned here tonight that this design is still fluid, but I really wonder how fluid it really is. There's going to be some certain viable or some known things that have to happen, and that's the economics of it. I think in some discussions since that meeting, there's possibly some other maybe uses of this land as far as the housing part of it goes. It'll still be housing, but maybe a different classification of housing. I don't know if all of that can be vetted out between now and December or whenever the kind of like bringing all this stuff together has to occur.
I think it has to be.
Yeah,
I think that model has to come together by the end of this year.
Yeah, since we've kind of held back, but now we're starting to assert ourselves as being part of the design team on this by saying it has to have commercial rather than it'd be nice to have commercial, and questioning, well, maybe the pocket park is going to be the sacrificial part
that needs to be turned into revenue for some reason to make this thing work instead of green space. You know, I really, I think we've got, our housing agency has got a real lot of work ahead of them in the next 2 months to bring this all together, to ferret out all of those different aspects that are involved with this. And it's going to require several sit-downs and some real face time to make this thing kind of get to your go, no-go decision on this thing. And so I think we all need to be a part of that, but as we start getting closer, I think we're going to start being more assertive on the design of this thing. Would you all agree with that?
I would agree.
I do.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay.
We
It's
haven't
just
got to the
simple
point where
economics.
we have enough definitive out there that we can get assertive with right now. I think we're still trying to find what direction this is going, and then there'll probably be some more assertiveness.
Because I imagine if they get approved, their application gets approved, that's the way she has to be built. There's no design after the fact. There's no, well, we want to change this. And it's the decision on what it's going to look like is going to have to be made by
Certainly the
submittal.
portion of the project that's funded by tax credits. You might have more flexibility on the part that's funded, you know, by the housing
the
company
commercial?
/ LCDC, but the residential will be fixed because it's on a, you know, per apartment, how many bedroom kind of approach for granting of the tax credits.
Can they move those around on the footprint? As long as they maintain the square footage and
They
the
can probably
numbers?
move them around within the building.
Okay.
Other discussion?
Let's
No,
vote.
this is just one of those things in life where you don't have a 100% answer, and we have to go ahead on faith here that we'll work something out with the neighborhood and something that pencils with a housing company, and everybody's involved in it. So, but I agree with you, Denny. I said at this point to just stop and do nothing is not going to do the Midtown neighborhood any good. We'll just have a piece of land up there that tough to figure out what to do with.
And I bring this up, this discussion about the deadline and when it's got to go in, because in all reality, that's when we individually have to decide what we want it to be, because it's not going to happen without us collectively saying what we want it to be. We're going to have to make that decision or that concerted effort to push this project from that point on, because
So we really have 2 months to make a input on this.
I would think it's probably going to be
It's going to be an iterative
Maximum.
process. Once they understand that we're still a committed process, then they'll continue to design, there'll be feedback, there'll be pushback, they'll get the architect back in, they're going to work on the pro forma to make sure how this all can work. So it'll be a process, a very involved process by this agency.
housing up for that. Spearhead
Housing's
this
up for it,
input. Okay.
You know, on the way out of the meeting, Doug indicated to me that he got some good feedback and he has some new ideas he's working on, kind of like you indicated. So at some point here, I think if we go ahead with this and vote to move forward, there'll probably be some more design come back, maybe another meeting with the neighborhood.
I would anticipate that.
Yeah, that's probably the next thing, is probably some more design, another neighborhood meeting or something to
That's gonna have
try and
to happen.
refine this, yeah.
Well, I think just from my own look at this, the tough decision we're going to have on this thing is, I think that from what I've heard from the neighborhood, conceptually, is height is a big deal. And they've already taken one story out of it. The only other story that could be taken out of it would be the commercial part of it. They could make it a 2-story project down on the street, no commercial. And we have to individually ask ourselves, are we willing to compromise that to make this thing happy so that everything works? And architecturally design that 2 stories to make sure it incorporates the setbacks and to minimize the visual part of what's going on in that 1 to 2 story business area. So I think that's kind of one of the things that we ourselves have got to come to a discussion on, an agreement with ourselves as to what's the minimum we would accept as far as the money that the public has invested in this thing. So
I don't know if it works as a 2-star. Hopefully they come up with a design that
Doesn't.
works. But one thing I learned from the meeting, and and this is nothing unusual, I don't think the neighborhood is necessarily a monolith. I mean, there's a number of different opinions within the neighborhood. There's a lot of common opinions, and there's a lot of differing opinions. So, and that's kind of how it is normally. So, we're never going to have 100% approval from 100% of the neighborhood, but I'm hoping to get a project that the majority of the neighborhood agrees is good for the neighborhood, and we feel is good for the neighborhood. And then, as Dave was alluding to, at some point the rubber hits the road and we have to make a decision on our participation and if we support the project and go forward with it.
On that note, is there further discussion? Deanna?
I don't have any further discussion.
You ready to vote?
Yes.
Yep. Call for the question. Okay. All those in favor, do we need the motion read?
Sure. What I gathered is motion by Commissioner Goodlander, second by Commissioner Arman, confirming LCDC support of the Housing Company's Midtown Mixed-Use Workforce Housing Initiative as currently proposed, with an actual LCDC funding commitment to be determined at a later time.
I said that.
You did said that well. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chairman votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
I think that's all we have for the Housing Committee.
Thank you, Deanna, for that rather lengthy report. Finance Committee, Rod.
Ask Tony to go ahead and present today because I've been out of town for a few days. So, Tony?
Copy.
Let's see, you need one? I got one. Okay.
If you all can look at the Lake District balance sheet, we've had a pretty quiet month on both districts, but for the Lake District, the Lake District experienced a $126,632 decrease in cash assets from August month end, due primarily to the annual transfer of arts funds to the city's Arts Commission totaling $83,362, and the final second half payment of the events grants to the Downtown Association totaling $25,000. The Washington Trust bond received an interest of $137. Under liabilities and fund balance, the mortgage and notes payable line item decrease of $15,662 for September represents a monthly debt obligation servicing for the principal owed on those conventional loans. And pretty much everything else on the balance sheet was standard for a normal operating month. On the Lake District P&L, the Lake District received $17,190 in tax increment from the county in September. The really only outstanding expense item we had was the repair and maintenance line item was higher than normal for the month due to the Cannon Hill invoice of $7,160 related to the demolition of the 518 North Park Avenue property. All the other P&L items were pretty standard for an operating month. Any questions on the Lake District? We switch over to the River District, the balance sheet. The River District experienced a $45,204 decrease in cash assets from August, primarily due to, once again, the transfer of the arts funds to the Arts Commission of totaling $35,939. And there was no other changes on the balance sheet for the assets on the balance sheet. And the liabilities and fund balance were unchanged for the month, other than a 2% contribution for the arts. And the River District P&L was very quiet for the month. The district only received $374 in tax increment revenue from the county, and all the other operating expenses were basically G&A cost share with the Lake District. As far as payables, I'll share that with you. The payables for the month include $240.50 to Elam & Burke for legal counsel for the month. Holly Troxel, a total of $2,043, $585 of which was for general legal counsel, and $1,458 was spent on issues within the Lake District concerning property divestiture process, and a little issue that we helped out on with the Bridge Academy. I can go into more detail on the Bridge Academy if you like, but it was an overture. Basically, the Bridge, and Danielle was very involved with this, working with the city. The Bridge Academy, they own the old YMCA building in the Lake District. That goes way back, and they expanded to the south and bought another parcel. That parcel is not within our Lake District, but the old YMCA building was in our Lake District, and they ran into some issues with the city and the county on being able to get a building permit to expand their academy because one of the parcels was not in an urban renewal district and one was. And I'm going to turn it over to Danielle now as she worked her magic on getting this worked out.
They were told by the city that they had to go to the county and merge it to be one parcel because you can't build over a property line, because then if you wanted to divest of the property, you'd have a building that, went over the boundary line. And the county wouldn't do that or didn't want to do that because of the one being in the district and one not, and the complication of that. It's ironic because it's a nonprofit, so they don't pay property tax anyway. But you can see why it would be a complication to their system to have part of a property in and part of it out. So I worked with Warren to come up with a process where they basically agreed, and we recorded an agreement that they not sell the properties separately, which allowed them to then get the building permit and move forward with their project without forcing the county to try and come up with a way to track that.
When you say the county, do you mean the assessor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Explain to me why it made a difference as to whether one was in. Okay, I guess I need to shut up.
Tax allocation areas, and one of them is not in the other.
That's the first time that's ever come up, because the way we drew the boundary line. So that boundary line goes up the alley right behind them,
Right.
the south. I'll be darned.
And needless to say, the Bridge Academy folks and their board were very appreciative of LCDC helping resolve this issue. So,
Thank you, Danielle, for that.
moving on, the second to last payable is for Coeur d'Alene Vision 2030. This is a $25,000 payable. The board agreed to contribute $25,000 in partnership funding to Phase 2 or Year 2 of the Coeur d'Alene 2030 initiative. And the final amount is $2,750 to the Redevelopment Association of Idaho. $750 of that is for the membership dues, and $2,000 is for their legislative effort for Elam and Burke. So that's a total of $2,750. All in all, it's $31,915.49 in payables.
So the chair would entertain a motion to approve the financials, accept the financials and approve the payables.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded to accept the financials and approve the payables. Any discussion? Thank you, Tony, Rod was gone for the Finance Committee meeting, so thanks for going in there.
Sure. And just finally, for the Finance Committee,
I got to call a vote.
oh, I apologize.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
And we were approving the financials as presented as well as the payables?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, just to close out the Finance Committee report, I'll just go ahead and share the quarterly report with the board that I shared with the Finance Committee. As I always say, at your convenience, go ahead and review this report and give me a call if you have any questions on it. That's all I have.
Okay. Call for Finance. Parking Committee. Commissioner Jordan. Anything on parking today?
Yeah, got a couple of items on parking. Here we are. All right. So Diamond is working on some more signage that's simpler and more explicit in the parking garage, or the McEwen parking structure, as well as the other parking areas. There's been a number of complaints about understanding the 2-hour free parking and how to use the ticket kiosk machines, and some people have thought you didn't need to use the ticket kiosk machines unless you were parking over 2 hours. And so anyway, people are kind of getting used to it, and they're trying to make some better signage to help people understand it better. And I asked Diamond how they feel about the usage, and I think David raised that at a previous meeting, but the parking usage at the new parking structure versus the old surface lot before the redevelopment was done down there, and they think it's somewhat similar, but they don't have a real good handle right now. They think give them until this time next year when they've had a full year to operate it and see what happens. As far as monthly parking, they do rent out spaces monthly, and those run as far as the numbers of those, they average anywhere from 50 to 60 or 70 spots a month, and that's about half of what it was before. But there's a couple things that are different. It costs $35 for a monthly spot, and those have been popular with some of the employees and also some of the condo owners downtown and so forth that need additional parking space. A lot of people like to be in the lower level where they're under a roof. But before they did the parking structure, when they had the old surface lot, they had two options. You had a $20 a month parking permit you could get, which allowed you to park 5 days a week in the lot, assuming you were possibly an employee at a business downtown. And that was kind of an accommodation for the employees. Or if you wanted to park full 7 days a week, you could pay $35. And they admit there was probably a lot of fudging on the $20 one because they didn't really have a way to necessarily track how many days everybody went in and out of there. But anyway, that's gone away, and all there is the $35 one. So they think maybe the fact that that's all they have now is contributing somewhat to the lower number of monthly parking that they're monthly parking spots that they're renting. Also, they're doing some. I think it's between the parking commission and probably the city engineering. They're doing some surveying on the number of handicap parking spots downtown compared to what we previously had. There's been some requests for more handicap parking spots, particularly on Sherman. And this is kind of a fluid thing, and I don't have the total answer for you tonight because it's kind of something that's fluid in the process. But even if they want to put handicap parking spots on Sherman, there's not the room to make a handicap parking spot that meets current ADA standards. So they're kind of caught in they're kind of caught on that. So they're studying that. That's something that's kind of fluid. We'll hear some more about that later. But I think for right now, that's my report.
Okay, questions of Brad?
I've got a couple of questions, and this might be to Tony or it might be to Brad, but now that it's starting to get dark and be dark longer, are all the lights that were originally proposed for the parking structure, are those all in place now? Because I heard at one point in time there was some concern about darkness and dark corners and feeling insecure, security issues down in that area.
They're talking about doing some better lighting, and that reminds me of one other thing. There's an ordinance moving through the channels to council on the kind of rules of conduct in the parking garage to counter some of the problems we've had with loitering by the homeless and the vagrants. Yeah, and also they're making this apply to all the parking lots at all the parks in town in case they have problems with people, misbehaving and how they're using the parking lots and so forth. So. Thanks for reminding me about that.
The two things I've heard, and I've heard a number of complaints about this, is lighting and then the security cameras that were originally proposed and I thought were funded, were never got installed. And, I think there's been some issue with drag racing and even, I've heard from a couple of females that they just don't feel safe after dark down there. So,
yeah,
it doesn't make a lot of sense to put this much money into a parking garage if it's not going to be a place where people feel safe.
Yeah, that was discussed, and they're working on that. And I know just as an LCDC board member, and I'm fairly new on the parking commission, but I was kind of surprised we're having some problems, such as a lack of ordinances. If you have people drag racing or living in the parking structure and so forth. But I guess we all probably were kind of surprised at that. But that's being worked on, and hopefully that problem will be solved. I'll find out about the cameras. And
I could share some insight on the cameras. In my recollection, it's a project paid for wiring for the cameras, that all the plumbing's in place, and the city was going to come up with acquisition of the camera themselves and put them in and do that. So,
And that has not been done, is that correct?
not to my knowledge, I don't know. The plumbing's in place.
Doesn't do any good if there's a problem down there and you don't have there's no camera.
Got to have somebody to look at the camera, too.
I just think, it's one of those things where it appears that all the money that LCDC put into the park is like the follow-up by the city is not there. And we made our commitment, and now the city's almost reneging on their commitment for some of the issues that needs to be taken care of to complete the park. And I know we have no power over the city by any means, but there's certain things like, safety issues and just all of the items to make that park really hum that doesn't seem to be getting addressed at this point in time.
I think it's a point well taken, and we will bring that to Troy's attention.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You too.
Because they do ask for us to assist from time to time.
Like tonight.
Like tonight, yes. Thanks, Brad. Dave, Communications Committee.
Two quick things. The survey has been completed. I think the information was sent out in a rough format on Monday to Tony and myself. Members of the Communications Committee have got that. We're meeting not next week, but the week after to review with Eden and Range and the Robinson folks. Kind of like, okay, we got this data, what's it say? And then we'll be getting it out to the rest of you for kind of a summary and a report at our November meeting. And the second thing, Deanna brought up a great point. Our bios are a little dated on the website. I think I'm included in that group. I'd really like to put my high school graduation picture in there, because I could really do a lot more lying about some things than reality
who you
today.
are.
Yeah. And they go, who is that new guy? But if you'd get that info to Tony so we can make sure she's a little fresher, a little more current, we'd be appreciative of it. So that's all I've got.
Dave, I will say I know that the group did the survey because I actually got called.
Did you?
And I refused to answer, so thought I might be a little biased.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Questions of Dave? Okay, Jobs Committee, Mick.
I do not have a report, thank you.
Okay.
No jobs this month.
No jobs this month.
Executive Director's report.
Just briefly, I wanted to review our fiscal 15 goals with the board. And Jeff, if you could throw up that fiscal 15 slide in the audience. It'd be on the second page of your handout. So these are, the audience sees, and the viewing audience, these are our tactical goals for the fiscal year 15, which started October 1st of this year. As you can see, we use a green, yellow, red tracking schedule to see if goals are on track, and obviously all the goals are green right now since we just started the fiscal year. But you can see the themes that we have: public space, communication, higher education campus, finance, parking, workforce housing, and jobs. And you can see the committee responsibilities and the success measures that each theme has with its responsible committee. So the board is going to be well engaged for this upcoming fiscal year. There's a lot of important initiatives to undertake and to get completed. So I just wanted to remind you of these goals that you set at the strategic planning session back in April, and that we will be tracking how these goals proceed over the next fiscal year.
Tony, I think we need to update the members of the committees on some of these too.
On which one specifically?
Well, as an example of jobs, I'm not on there.
Well, if you look at the fiscal 15, the second page, that's been changed for this fiscal year.
It's just all empty, but
Yeah.
okay.
Everybody's on there.
Everybody's in there now.
Okay.
You have all of us
I get
as
the whole
your brethren.
You don't get away with not being on it.
Well, I'm supposed to be the chairman, so I be left off.
You're in
Protective
there.
of his
You're in
group
there.
there.
And the other report is just on the Four Corner project. I'll look to Mr. Patcher to help here, but the project the design team is still going forward. They're still having meetings. They have not produced an initial draft concept yet. That will be coming our way and the public's way soon. But the message I wanted to share is that they're still working it, they're still visiting, they're still conceptualizing and designing. Mr. Patcher, did I miss anything? Or?
Oh, yeah, you've been as general as heck, and you did a good job.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, thank you, Tony. Okay, board commissioner comments. Anybody have something on their minds to share with us? If not, public comment. Susie, welcome.
I have just, I'm sorry, Susie Snedeker. I have a few comments. Number one, I note in your meeting minutes that Chairman Davis thanked Mr. Tymeson, Mrs. McLeod, Mr. Peterson, and the meeting attendees. There wasn't any comment. There were absolutely no minutes relative to the comments made by the neighbors at this meeting. Apparently, we were silent, and I know we're not. And everybody approved it, so I guess we were marginalized. There's another thing in this. Renata presented, I think Renata was presenting this project, looking at all the fancy paperwork that Tony provided, as the CDBG block grant, which it is not. And by the way, the figure for the tax credits is $5 million, and I believe it's 5% of the project. Frank?
5% of the funding request.
Oh, the funding request, correct.
That's what it was.
This is all sketchy, so I just didn't have a lot of room to write. There was something mentioned about the district overlay, and the neighbors were very surprised to find out that there was, in fact, a district overlay, and I have a feeling that the city, when they adopted the district overlay for East Sherman, also adopted this, and I would cite that there was no public notification at the time, if I remember correctly. So the neighbors were really surprised that they had a high-density overlay. Not to be confused with the Midtown classification that was determined with the original urban renewal district designation. Another thing, the housing company is a separate entity from Idaho Housing and Finance Association. And then there were a couple more things. When I originally asked for a meeting, I thought it was going to be a workshop, and having attended many special call workshops and workshops period with different city groups, I thought it would be, it's going to be a meeting where we were all going to discuss ideas, and the neighbors were going to come and be a part of it too. And I was very surprised to arrive here and see the tablecloths and the setup like this, which certainly isn't conducive to any kind of free exchange of ideas. Apparently I was mistaken. Tony informed me it was special call and there was some kind of protocol, and this is what you were supposed to do. Mr. Peterson was going to have a free exchange with us because he did in fact say that he wanted to work with the neighbors. I don't really recall any free exchange with the neighbors at all, and I know that there were a lot of comments made that night. I think that working together, I spoke to Mr. Peterson, we shared an elevator on the way up, and my issue has always been zoning. I've been involved in this since its inception. I was one of the ones who advocated for the inclusion of Midtown. Advocated a lot for the inclusion of Midtown. I asked him to if he could please submit several schematics for the neighbors to look at to see if something was more compatible and there was a better fit for the neighborhood design-wise. And he said it cost money, but he'd think about it. And that was on the way up in the elevator, and then he got in his car and left. Back to the issue, the special call meeting was very disappointing to me because I really thought it would be a free exchange of ideas, which it was not. You all watched the presentation. The presentation was very, very positive. We all talked about working with everybody, and then we got here, and it was all about affordable housing and Renata's thing, and then Troy's thing, and I just was disappointed anyway. I had to tell you that. And it's not like it's the first meeting I've attended. I've attended a lot of meetings, but I just felt that it wasn't to work with the neighbors. It was to show the neighbors what the city was going to do, and that was it. My 2 bits worth. Thank you, and thank you so much, Denny. I appreciate it.
Welcome, Susie. Thanks for your comments. I will just say, the only thing I will say is I don't think there was any stifling of the participants' ability to make comments.
Probably not, but it wasn't really conducive to it either, Jenny. That was my feeling.
Okay. Criticism taken. Greg.
Thank you.
Yep. Just if you give your name.
Greg Johnson. And Susie took some of my notes, but I'm going to just rehash just a little bit. That September 17th meeting that we gave, or presentation we gave, that she alluded to, that was extremely positive, looking to work with everyone, coming up with a new idea, a different fit for the property, which prompted the October 8th meeting with the board. And yeah, I think we had a different thought of what that meeting was going to be about, because I mentioned a walk and talk, something a little more casual, actually up and down that Midtown quarter. So I hope that's still available with as fluent as movement as this project is being proposed.
I think it is, Greg. One of the issues that came up is that because it appeared we were going to have a quorum, we had to recognize some formalities.
And I totally understand that.
So maybe in the future we can sort of skinny it down and get a little more.
That would be appreciated, very much so, because I think a lot can be talked about up and down the street. The meeting, all I'm going to say about the meeting and some of the information that was given on October 8th was really not apples to apples when things were compared from the consensus that I got from the neighbors. I'm speaking for most of them. And I know that we had a discussion on, we do have a developer interested and very invested in this. I'm going to keep that information to myself until we're ready to present what we would like to on there with this developer, and that would be in the next 30 to 45 days. So no disrespect to Tony on not giving you that information the other night. The other is we are going to continue with our petition with the information that is out there right now and informing the community. And I think we'll span outside of Midtown and just open it up to people that live in the city. Douglas Peterson has been mentioned quite a few times tonight and was a key speaker on October 8th and had got us up to speed on where they were with the project and some of the ins and outs of the project. And there is a public comment from him that is actually in the press quite some time ago when this, right after this, or right before this project was shelved on different issues, that he would not go forward with a project that was not supported by the neighbors. And I don't know how open that is. I don't know how I can hold that to him or what as years go by and things have been said and things progress and all that. But I'd like to keep that in everyone's mind. Is that something that we're definitely holding on to? There was one comment made tonight about some sacrifice, green space versus retail space, the size and the scope of the project, and as that layout showed, there is another piece of property there that is owned by the Idaho Housing Company, is that Idaho Youth Ranch. And if we're, excuse me, sir.
Just for a point of correction, the Idaho Youth Ranch owns the building they're in. The housing company does not.
Okay, excuse me. So I missed. Yeah. Okay, so I guess what I was after was that I think we're all up and open for sacrifice and back and forth on this. We are not narrow-minded at all on this piece of property. We just feel that there's another opportunity for it, and if it was open to a fair market value, we do have some folks that are interested in pursuing it. So I'm going to leave it open to that. You have my commitment. Within 30 to 45 days, we'll have a different proposal to be part of. I would want more participation in the other discussions about this project. and having a handful of neighbors a part of that. And I would encourage you, we meet every Monday, 5:30. Right now, since the weather changes at Kelly's, I would invite any or all of you to sit in and listen and engage in all that. And I think we can do it via email or phone numbers or whatever. And if we knew you were coming, we'll comb our hair and get our pencils sharp. So that's my invitation of maybe a portion of walk and talk or another portion of fine-tuning this project. That's all I would say.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for your interest. Any other public comment? Okay. So we're on the agenda, executive session under Idaho Code Section 67-2345, Sub 1, Subsection B, to consider the evaluation of the LCDC Executive Director.
I move we adjourn to executive session.
Executive session, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, roll call.
Goodlander,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Aye.
Harmon, Patzer, Davis,
Aye.
Jordan,
Yes.
Oscar.
Motion carries. We will be in executive session.
Had a chance, Scott. I'm going to drag you over.